The rain fell on London in relentless, gray sheets, turning the city's historic grandeur into a watercolor blur. From the back of the sleek black cab, Dr. Amara Jones watched it all slide past. To anyone glancing in, she was just another traveler, weary from a transatlantic flight, her designer carry-on the only hint of her success. But inside that bag, next to a well-worn passport, was a leather-bound notebook and a single, embossed business card that held more power than any of the financial district's high-stakes traders could imagine. Amara Jones, senior hospitality and lifestyle correspondent, Forbes. Amara wasn't just checking into a hotel. She was conducting a forensic investigation. The Lion's Court, a boutique hotel tucked away in prestigious Mayfair Square, was pitching itself as the new pinnacle of discreet, five-star British service. Forbes was considering it for its coveted top 100 luxury experiences list. Amara's job was to see if the reality matched the press release. This was her specialty. She could dissolve into the background, becoming a ghost at the feast, observing the unvarnished truth of how a place treated its guests when it didn't think anyone important was watching. She called it reading the silence between the notes of service. And as the cab pulled under the ornate porte-cochere of the Lion's Court, she already had her first data point. The doorman, clad in impeccable livery, hesitated for a full 3 seconds before moving to open her door, his eyes flicking from her face to the cab as if expecting a more expected kind of guest to emerge. The hook, the moment the ordinary day sharpened into a point of tension, came just inside the grand, marble-floored lobby. It was a sanctuary of hushed tones and gilded mirrors, smelling of beeswax and old money. And standing in the center of it, a portrait of condescension, was a man named Alistair Finch. Alistair was the head butler. He was in his late 40s, with silvering hair parted with razor precision and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He moved with a rehearsed grace, a man who believed his proximity to wealth was a substitute for character. Amara approached the concierge's desk, her soft-soled shoes silent on the marble. Alistair was in the midst of orchestrating the arrival of an older, visibly wealthy white couple, the Prestons. "Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Preston, your suite is prepared. Of course, we've taken the liberty of chilling the Dom Perignon you prefer. And I've secured those opera tickets for tonight, front and center, just as you requested." His voice was a syrupy baritone, layered with obsequious charm. He finished with them, his bow a perfect, shallow angle of deference. As they were whisked away, his posture changed. The syrupy charm evaporated, replaced by a weary, bureaucratic stiffness as he turned to Amara. The shift was subtle, but to Amara's trained eye, it was as clear as a slamming door. "Yes?" he said, the single word devoid of the warmth he'd lavished on the Prestons. "Good afternoon. I have a reservation. Jones." Alistair's fingers tapped on a sleek tablet, his eyes scanning the screen. He didn't look up at her. The Jones reservation. A standard king room. He said standard as if it were a diagnosis. "I trust your flight was adequate?" It was a small thing, a microaggression, but Amara had a PhD in microaggressions. She built a career on documenting their cumulative weight. She simply smiled a neutral, professional mask. "It was fine, thank you." His eyes flicked over her again, lingering on her carry-on. "Traveling light, I see." "It wasn't a question, it was an assessment." "I find it more efficient," Amara replied, her voice even. "I see." He picked up a heavy, old-fashioned key, a pretentious touch she noted for her review, and emerged from behind the desk. "This way. Your room is on the 4th floor." He led her not to the bank of elegant lifts, but toward the narrower, older door tucked behind a potted fern. "The staff lift is just through here," Alistair said, holding the door open for her. "It's more direct for the 4th floor." Amara stopped walking. The silence stretched, filled only by the distant chime of a clock. She looked from the ornate guest lifts to the utilitarian staff door, then back to Alistair's placid, unapologetic face. "I believe I'll use the main lift," she said, her voice soft but leaving no room for negotiation. A flicker of annoyance crossed Alistair's features, so fast it was almost imaginary. "As you wish." He redirected, his posture now stiff with disapproval. In the plush silence of the main lift, He spoke again, his gaze fixed on the ascending numbers. "We do have a dress code for the dining room in the evenings. Cocktail attire is mandatory. I can recommend some excellent off-site dining options in the neighborhood, if that would be more convenient for you." The implication hung in the air, thick and sour. "Asterisk, you won't fit in here. Don't even try. Asterisk." Amara felt a hot prickle of anger on the back of her neck, but she breathed through it. This was data. Valuable, ugly data. "Thank you. I'm aware of the dress code," she said, her tone frosty. The room, when they reached it, was lovely, a tasteful blend of classic and modern. But Alistair's commentary continued as he showed her the features. The minibar is fully automated. The charges are applied directly to your card to avoid any discrepancies at checkout. He pointed to the high-tech coffee machine. The instructions are quite complex. I'd advise against using it if you're not technically inclined. We can send up instant coffee if you prefer. Each sentence was a tiny paper cut, assumption of her ignorance, her financial instability, her otherness. He was building a profile of her based on his own deeply ingrained biases, and he was getting every single detail wrong. The climax of the performance came when Amara, wanting to test the Butler's service, made a simple request. "Could I please have an iron and ironing board sent up? My suit for this evening needs a press." Alistair's eyebrows rose slightly. "Of course, though our valet service is exceptional. For a fee, naturally. It might be safer. We wouldn't want any accidents with the hotel's equipment." That was a final straw. The suggestion that she was too clumsy to handle an iron was so blatantly absurd it crossed from subtly offensive to comically rude. "The ironing board will be fine," Amara said, her voice now dangerously quiet. "Very well." He gave a curt nod and left, closing the door with a soft, definitive click. The moment she was alone, Amara didn't scream or fume. She got to work. She opened her laptop and began to type, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She documented every interaction with Alistair with the dispassionate precision of a scientist. The delayed doorman, the shift in tone, the staff lift, the dress code warning, the minibar comment, the ironing board condescension. She didn't just write what he said. She analyzed the subtext, the body language, the toxic ecosystem that allowed such behavior to flourish unchecked. This wasn't just a bad employee. This was a failure of culture, starting at the top. Later that evening, transformed from the weary traveler into a vision of elegant power in a tailored emerald green dress, Amara descended the hotel's opulent dining room. The look on the maitre d's face was a small, private victory. He seated her at the best table in the house, a quiet alcove with a view of the entire room. And who should be gliding between tables? The epitome of oleaginous service. Alistair. He was pouring wine for the Preston couple, laughing a little too heartily at their jokes. His eyes swept the room and landed on Amara. For a second, his smooth facade cracked. There was a flash of confusion, then a dawning, uncomfortable recognition. He quickly looked away, but Amara saw the slight tremor in his hand as he set the wine bottle down. She ate a sublime meal, making notes on the food and the exemplary service from the waitstaff, who were uniformly professional and attentive. The contrast was stark. It proved that Alistair was an outlier, a toxin in an otherwise healthy body. The true reckoning came the next morning at checkout. Amara stood at the front desk, once again in her travel clothes, as Alistair presided over the process. He was back to his dismissive self, clearly deciding the previous night's appearance was a fluke. "I hope your stay was satisfactory," he said, the pause speaking volumes. He slid the bill across the marble counter. "You'll see the minibar has been secured with no discrepancies." Amara didn't look at the bill. She reached into her bag and pulled out her leather-bound notebook. She opened it to a fresh page, and then, with deliberate slowness, she placed her Forbes business card on top of the closed folio. "The stay was illuminating, Mr. Finch," she said, her voice clear and carrying in the quiet lobby. "I was particularly fascinated by your onboarding process for guests you deem standard." Alistair's eyes dropped to the notebook, then to the business card. The blood drained from his face, so completely he looked like a marble statue. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The perfectly coiffed hair and the razor-sharp part suddenly seemed ridiculous. The trappings of a man whose entire authority was about to evaporate. Dr. Jones. I had no idea, he stammered, his polished accent fracturing. That's the point, isn't it? Amara said, her gaze steady and cool. You're not supposed to know. You're just supposed to provide the same impeccable service to every guest. A service which, in your case, seems to be predicated on a rather primitive set of assumptions. She watched as the full weight of his actions crashed down upon him. She saw him mentally calculating the cost. The lost Forbes listing, the scathing review that would be read by millions, the certain termination from his prestigious position. This wasn't just a complaint to a manager. This was a career-ending, reputation-destroying event. Please, he whispered, his voice ragged, allow me to speak to the general manager. We can comp your stay. Of course. Offer you a complimentary week in our royal suite. Amara held up a hand, silencing him. I'm not interested in compensation, Mr. Finch. I'm interested in accountability. She picked up her pen and tapped it lightly on her notebook. You see, you weren't just rude to me. You were a data point. A very clear data point that the Lions Court has a profound blind spot when it comes to biases of its senior staff. And in my line of work, data is everything. She turned to leave, then paused, looking back at the broken man behind the desk. You mocked the wrong standard guest, Alistair. Remember that. The true measure of luxury isn't in the champagne or the thread count. It's in the dignity afforded to every single person who walks through that door. You failed that test. Spectacularly. She walked out of the lobby, leaving him standing there, a monument to his own prejudice. The doorman, having witnessed the entire exchange, practically leaped to open the door for her, his face a mask of newfound respect. Outside, the London rain had softened to a mist. Amara took a deep breath, the cool, damp air feeling like a baptism. She hadn't written a review yet, but she knew what it would say. It wouldn't just be a takedown of Alistair Finch. It would be a dissection of performative luxury, a case study on how silent biases can corrupt a brand from within. It would be a warning to the entire industry. She hailed a cab, sliding into back seat. She pulled out her notebook, uncapping her pen. At the top of a fresh page, she wrote the title she would use for her Forbes article. She wrote, "The Unseen Chains of Prejudice, My Night as a Standard Guest at the Lions Court." And then Dr. Amara Jones, the ghost of the feast, began to write the truth.